December 21st, 1945. General George S. Patton died in Heidelberg, Germany. His personal papers, diaries, letters, disappeared from public view. Not lost, not destroyed. Controlled. Patton won the war, but after his death, others would decide how he was remembered. Official military records entered Army custody. Personal materials remained under family control. Both stayed largely inaccessible for decades. 1950, not available. 1960, not available. 1970, not available. 1972. Finally, the Patton Papers, Volume 1. 27 years after his death. Here is what makes this impossible. War heroes leave records. Historians study them. The public reads them. This often happens within a generation. But Patton's papers stayed hidden. Through institutional control. Someone decided what the public could see, when they could see it, and how the story would be told. The war was over, but the battle over Patton's legacy had just begun. This is the story of who controlled Patton's story after his death. 27 years. Papers controlled. Voice silenced. Subscribe. December 1945. Patton died controversial and politically isolated. The papers, Patton left extensive documentation, daily diaries, personal letters to his wife Beatrice, official correspondence with Eisenhower, Bradley, Marshall, reports on operations across North Africa, Sicily, France, Germany. These documents contain Patton's unfiltered views, his criticisms of Allied strategy, his opinions about Eisenhower's decisions, his conflicts with Montgomery, his controversial statements about the Soviet Union and German denazification. The papers were Patton's version of events, his voice, his perspective. Who controlled them? After Patton's death, control became complicated. The Army had custody of official documents. The family had claim to personal correspondence and diaries. Archives and historians wanted access. Multiple parties, multiple interests, multiple claims. The Army's position. The Army feared what Patton's words might mean in the Cold War. Soviet-related materials were sensitive. Inter-Allied communications required diplomatic discretion. Materials remained classified for years. Others were released slowly, with redactions. The family's position. Beatrice Patton controlled personal papers and family correspondence. She wanted George's legacy protected, but his story told accurately. She died in 1953, 8 years after George. Control passed to the Patton estate. The family faced difficult choices. Which documents to release? Which to withhold? How to present controversial statements? The historical challenge. Historians needed access to write accurate accounts, but access was limited. The Army controlled official records. The family controlled personal papers. Neither released everything immediately. For decades, the full documentary record remained fragmented. Patton's own words were largely unavailable. Late 1960s. Pressure mounted for publication. The Army's constraint. The Army needed to protect classified information in diplomatic relationships. Cold War sensitivities remained. Patton's Soviet comments were still politically touchy. But pressure for transparency was increasing. Historical scholarship demanded access. Public interest was high. Balance was required. Release enough for historical record without compromising security. The family's constraint. The Patton estate wanted George remembered as military genius, not just controversial figure. His victories deserved recognition, but protecting his reputation meant careful presentation. Some statements might damage rather than enhance his legacy. The editor's constraint. Martin Blumenson, a distinguished military historian, was selected to edit the Patton Papers. He faced competing pressures. Historians wanted complete documentation. The Army wanted security review. The family wanted appropriate presentation. He needed cooperation from all sides. The historical constraint. By 1970, 25 years had passed. Memories were fading. Veterans who knew Patton were aging. Delay meant loss. The longer publication waited, the more historical understanding suffered. A military archivist who worked with Patton documents in the 1960s later described the access situation. Official papers were scattered across archives. Classification levels varied. Researchers who wanted complete picture faced obstacles. Request one document, wait for security review. Request another, different archive, different process. The archivist reflected that institutional control was not necessarily malicious, but it was effective. Documents existed, but reaching them required navigating multiple systems. Late 1960s to 1974. The publication process moved forward. Blumensen's task was substantial. Compile Patton's diaries from multiple sources, gather correspondence from family archives and military records, organize chronologically, provide historical context, create publishable volumes. The work required years. The selection process. Not everything Patton wrote could be published. Volume constraints existed. Some materials were repetitive. Some were classified. Some were too personal. Editorial judgment determined what appeared. These decisions shaped how Patton's story would be told. Army Review. The Army maintained security review authority. Documents touching classified operations or diplomatic communications required clearance. Some materials were cleared quickly. Others took longer. Some required redactions. 1972, Volume 1. The Patton Papers, Volume 1, appeared in 1972, covering 1885 to 1940, 27 years after Patton's death. The volume showed Patton's development from young officer through pre-war years. His personality, ambitions, military thinking became visible. 1974, Volume 2. Volume 2 appeared in 1974, covering the war years. This volume contained Patton's accounts of combat operations, his relationships with commanders, his strategic thinking. But it also contained editorial selections. Blumensen made choices about what served historical understanding versus what might be unnecessarily controversial. What remained withheld. Some materials remained classified. Some stayed in family archives. The complete documentary record remained incomplete. 1972 to 1974. The published volumes revealed Patton, but also revealed control. Public reception. The Patton Papers received substantial attention. Historians praised the volumes. Readers gained direct access to Patton's voice for the first time in decades. But some reviewers noted the long delay. 27 years from death to publication was unusual. Why so long? The control question. Publication highlighted the control issue. For decades, institutions and individuals had determined what the public could know about Patton. Who decides what becomes public? When? How? Competing narratives. During the decades before publication, Patton's story had been told by others. Biographers worked with limited access. The published papers allowed Patton's own voice into the conversation. But by 1972 to 1974, other narratives were already established. A historian who studied World War II command relationships later described the impact of delayed publication. When documents appear decades late, they enter established narratives rather than shaping them. Early Patton biographies were written without full access. These books shaped public understanding. By the time the Patton Papers appeared, many readers had formed opinions based on incomplete information. The historian noted this creates distortion, not from malice, but from timing. First, historical gap. 27 years created historical gap. Early biographies lacked Patton's own words. Understanding was built on secondary sources. Second, control over narrative. For nearly 3 decades, institutions controlled what the public could know. This shaped historical understanding. Third, lost context. Veterans who served with Patton aged and died. Questions became matters of interpretation rather than testimony. Fourth, selection impact. Even after publication, not everything was included. The published record was substantial, but incomplete. Fifth, who owns a legend? For nearly 3 decades, institutions answered that question. 1972 and 1974. The Patton Papers finally appeared. But while institutions negotiated and historians debated, people paid the personal cost. Beatrice Patton. Beatrice spent 8 years trying to clear George's name. From December 1945 to September 1953, she worked to show the world the man she knew. She died September 30th, 1953. 19 years before the Patton Papers appeared, Beatrice never saw the publication, never saw vindication. She died waiting. The veterans' Third Army veterans who served under Patton knew the truth about his leadership. They wanted his story told properly. Many died before 1972, before the papers appeared, before Patton's own words could confirm what they had witnessed. The witnesses disappeared while institutions debated. Those who could have testified were gone before his testimony became public. Patton himself. George S. Patton died December 21, 1945. Controversial, politically isolated. For 27 years, his voice was silent. Others told his story. Critics judged his statements. His own words stayed hidden while others defined him. The hero's own words came last. The cost appeared in 3 places. The wife who fought for his legacy died before vindication. The soldiers who witnessed his leadership died before testimony. The man himself, silenced for 27 years. What was lost? Beatrice died believing George's reputation irreparably damaged. Veterans died without seeing their commander's brilliance documented. Patton died never knowing his words would rehabilitate his image. The papers eventually appeared. But for many who loved him, served under him, believed in him, the truth came too late. But this raises a question not about Patton, about you. You are leaving a record. Emails, messages, photos, documents, social media posts, work files, personal writings. When you are gone, who will control that record? Who will decide what becomes public? What gets deleted? What gets preserved? What gets interpreted? Will your family have access to your digital accounts? Will your employer control your professional legacy? Will strangers piece together your story from fragments? Will those who loved you get to defend your memory? Or will others define you through selected evidence and delayed access? Patton's wife died waiting to clear his name. Will someone wait to clear yours? Patton's soldiers died before they could testify for him. Who will testify for you when testimony matters? Patton's own voice was silent for 27 years. How long will your voice stay silent? The answer: you cannot control how you are remembered. But Patton's story shows what happens when control falls entirely to institutions, gatekeepers, and time. Papers get classified. Access gets restricted. Stories get told by others. Vindication comes too late. Witnesses die. Truth gets delayed. The question is not whether you will be remembered. The question is, who will control how? Patton died December 21, 1945. His papers appeared 1972. 27 years. His wife never saw them. His soldiers never testified. His voice came last. Not lost, not destroyed, controlled. And that control shaped everything. You will leave a record. Someone will control it. The only question is, who will it be? And will they tell the truth before everyone who knew you is gone? Beatrice died before vindication. Veterans died before testimony. Patton's voice came last. Subscribe for the stories where truth arrived too late.